Hi everyone, welcome back to the next video on this channel. Today we are going to conduct a code review for a UiPath aspirant. So what is going to happen in this video? Recently I have given an assignment to one of the UiPath aspirant for her practice. Now she has completed the development and now she wanted me to have a code review of it. So basically we are trying to review the code which she has written. The video starts by describing the problem statement, that what has to be done. Then we are reviewing the code based on the development best practices. If you are a beginner to the technology and you have started writing the code, there are something which you should always take care while writing the code in UiPath Studio. So this video can help you to get some of your answer. Also, in case if you have some written code with you and you want me to review it, always feel free to drop me a note on the email ID which is mentioned in the description and I shall get back to you. Having said that, let's get started. Okay, so now I have two solutions. First is the dispatcher and next is the performer, right? So dispatcher mein I had to go to the SecMe website, click on the work items, extract the top 100, right? I have to store the WIID in Excel, and the Excel sheet have one column, and then I have to save the Excel and add the WIID data to the queue, right? Right. So now there would be two approaches to make the dispatcher. One is that linear one, that where I extract everything in a data table, right? Extract all the 100 WIIDs at once and then put it to the data table. The next way could be download the top 100 and upload it one by one. So which one you have gone for? So linear or transactional?
I have choose linear track.
Okay, linear, where you are downloading all the 100 WIIDs at once and then uploading using a bulk queue. Okay.
Yeah.
So let us do a code review for your dispatcher. Okay. So first thing, do you want to make a note of it, or I will make a note of it and then I can share the files with you? Okay. That what are the things that you need to take care of? Okay. So if you will see the first one, you have not put the process title, you have not put the process description.
Okay.
Right. So the first thing is, wherever you start an automation, you always provide the process title and the process description. Okay. So in this case, your process title and process description should have been provided. Okay. I will share you this notepad at the end and then you can refer. Next, you can add more information such as author, contact details, the version, and this one you can just make it with the process name from here. That is general business process. I would just call it dispatcher, right? Anything you can name it, but renaming will make it clear. Okay. This help that anybody, when you are giving the code, right, he or she can refer, right? So that is the first thing. Now let us go to the first stage, that is the initialization state, right? So here you have not touched this thing. This is provided by RE framework. In the import arguments, you are using the config file, I guess, correct? So we'll just wait for the arguments to load. Okay, so you are using the config file, and I hope the config file would be available inside the data folder, correct? So let us see what you have done in the config file. Okay, so orchestrator queue name is, so this is your exact queue name, process ABC queue.
No, so the queue name is the below that the seventh row. Yeah.
So you should have used this parameter. Okay, there is already a created, right? Orchestrator queue name. So you should have, you can use this one or you can just remove this one. First thing is, we always remove the unwanted ones. Okay, basically the settings. So in here, the queue name could have been directly passed here only, right? Extra, when I say whenever you have created something like this, right? Extra here, right? You should not have anything in the config file which is not getting referenced. Okay. And now whenever you are using such entries, right, always provide a description. How would I know what this attribute means, right? So I would just mention here, remove the unwanted one from the config, and you always provide a description also, right? RIP descriptions. So now that this looks good. In the constant assets, I think you have keep it the basics one, right? Okay, so now why your kill all process is okay, you have written here. Okay, got it. So ms edge, and here you are killing the process, right? So if you will ideally see here what is happening, first you are killing and then you are logging, right? So ideally this should be like this. So you should not change the order. Okay, first the bot will come, it will print the log, that killing application, and then it will try. In your case, what happens if the bot is not able to kill Edge browser, you won't get this log, right? And you won't be able to know that which process has, which XAML has caused this issue. Okay, so that's why you just put everything below it, right? So you, that's a small one, but just to take care of. So kill all process is done. So as of now in the dispatcher, I am using and Acme thing, that is a browser, and I am using an Excel. So why have you not killed the Excel, right?
Actually, yeah, I didn't
See,
thought
so
about that. Yeah, I have, because we are using workbook. So anyways, it is, yeah, we are in
okay, you are not using
private.
any of the Excel applications, scope or Excel
Yeah,
activities,
yeah,
then it's
yeah.
okay, fine.
That's
So you are using workbook, but always you can have clean environment because Excel is somewhere getting used, right? But if you are not
yeah,
using, you can remove it, no issues. Okay,
yeah. Okay, yeah, sure.
so kill all browser looks good to me, right? So now let me go to the initialization phase, framework, kill all application, this is done. Init all applications, right? In the init all application, we have to just initialize this thing, right? Let us
Yeah.
see what you have done here. See, now this is correct. First, it will come to this
Yeah.
XAML and it will say open the application, right?
Mm.
Now, how would you know your app or website is open or not? So, how, when let's say this robot is running from the orchestrator, right? How would you know that whether the browser was opened successfully, whether the bot has clicked on the work items? So, what exactly is missing here? You are missing the logs.
Yeah.
Right? There is no logging, right?
Mm.
This
Okay.
logging, you can use the log message activities. Okay, you can always use the activity called log message and print the information, or you can also use something which is called the custom logs. Okay, so custom log is something which the robot will create and print everything in a notepad file and you can refer it. But the idea is you should always have a logging. Okay,
For custom logs, how can we do that?
okay. So custom logs is something we have to create as a developer. In my channel, there is a dedicated video around 20-24 minutes. Okay. You can just watch that video and it will guide you that how to create custom logs. Okay. It's a very straightforward concept where you just keep a notepad file at the beginning and the bot keeps on writing the data to here. But if you are not using custom logs, you just can simply use this one here like this, and you write an info level error, and here you simply say that brow browser opened successfully. Okay,
Okay. Okay.
so that way this, when I'm running it from an unattended mode, I should be able to get it, right? So logging is something which you need to take care of. Okay, okay, now next click on work item. Okay, so this looks good. In the selectors, see, can you tell me what is the problem here in this selector? It might be working for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is the
At
problem?
that time, it's working. So I didn't check the
Right,
selector. I didn't thought about that. Yeah. It will give me the error in future, maybe. Yeah.
right. So the validate selectors which are
which are
automatically generated. Okay, so
Okay.
ideally here, if you will see, this has put a long space. Now
Mm.
star. Okay, that's it.
Okay.
So always look
Mm.
for the selectors.
Yeah.
Fine.
Okay.
So this is done. Now
Mm.
initialization all application is done. I'll just ask you a question. What happens if you try to open Acme website? Okay, let's say as a normal human user. Okay, what would you do if you try to open the browser with this URL and the browser is not accessible? So do you want to quit the process or do you want to retry?
I want to retry. Mm.
Right, you would at least want to retry once, right?
Yeah.
So for
Yeah.
that you can apply again. That is not a mandate, but you just think from an overall project point of view that if the
Yeah.
application is not able to open, you want to retry and open it, right? So what you can do is you can always use a retry scope here. Okay,
Mm.
and
Okay. Yeah.
that retry scope, based on that you can do it, right? Now in the init all application, if something happens, like let's say any exception occurs, right? So it is already encapsulated in a try catch block, this guy. So the exception will directly go to the exception block, right? And it will raise a system exception. Okay,
Yeah.
now if you feel that if this website is not available or it is not reachable, you want to have a customized kind of message where you say that you want to notify the user that we have retried 3 times and I'm not able to open. You have to encapsulate this thing in a try catch block, and in the catch block you have to explicitly throw an exception, right? So just writing a point, think about exception handling, right? So whenever you do any project, right, you have to always think about the exception handling scenarios, what might go wrong and what can I do, right? Everything else, the good part what you have done is you have renamed the activities, right? You have rename. This is good. You can always go ahead and click on this remove. That is, again, I leave it on you, but this is good. Okay, so init all application is done. Now I can see you have customized the RE framework to work in a linear way, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't get in anything in the initialization, you go and you end the process, right?
End the process. Yeah.
So in the end process, if I open the workflow, okay, so you are just using the logout. Let me check the selector. Again, the same thing. It is having yes, this looks pretty good because you have used the name and all, but again the same thing, always try to see the selector which are generated, right? And in the exception it would be again the kill all process. This looks good. Now let me go to the process transaction. Now here the by default the business exception object is set to nothing. I go to process XAML, and in here, so first of all, you are attaching the browser, then you are doing the extraction of the WIID. Okay, and then you are writing the data into that, and you have taken this thing from the config file, right? Again, the one thing missing here, how would I know when I run it from the orchestrator? So what you have to do is you have to simply put the log, right? That I have data extracted successfully, data written in the Excel file. So if I today ask you how many rows your robot has got, we have specified 100, but someday it might get only 65, 66, someday it might get only 5, someday it might get only 10, right? So you can specify logs here to debug the process in case anything goes wrong, right? And then you are writing this thing in a config file. So let me go and check your config file once again. Okay, so this is the config file, and you have passed the URL from here. Good. So this now bot will take it from here, and in case we deliver it to the client, they can use it, right? One more suggestion here, you can always pass this sheet name also from the config. Not, let's say I am a client, I want to create a Excel sheet with a name Acme data. So you don't want to come back to the automation, right? Good thing would be always create a variable for sheet name here, and then let them give an option to customize the sheet name also. Okay.
Sure.
Okay, so then next we are adding the data to the queue, and this is again added to the folder. This is the queue name, this is all or nothing, and the results are done. This is good, right? Now again the same thing. What happens if this break, right? If
Yeah.
so as of now, I'll tell you the problem with your automation. If anything is breaking here, right? So RE framework has already done the exception handling for me, right? That we all know. It has handled the business exception, it has handled the system exception.
Yeah.
Now you think that what all might happen wrong here. You may get an issue with extraction, you may get an issue with write range, you may get an issue with bulk queue, right? How would you know by looking at the exception that which activity has faulted or what went has wrong? So mostly whenever you are adding something to the orchestrator queues or anything, right, what you can do is you can have a log message activity. You can encapsulate only this thing in a try catch block, or let's say these two in a try catch block, and you simply say that if anything goes wrong, I want to log this message that while adding the transaction to the queue the bot has faulted, right? So that way you are,
Whichever,
yeah.
yeah. So whichever means whatever the main important we are doing any activity or something, we have to use try catch block for that.
Right. So again, the try catch block is one more thing. Let's say when you are adding the data to the queue and this thing break, right? So do you want to retry it? If no, then it's okay. If yes, you can always use the retry scope. That entirely depends on how you can think as an automation developer. What are the things you care of, right? Let's say while writing the automation using the right range, something happened. Let's say while extracting this report from the this one, right, browser, the selector was not found. Do you want to retry? If yes, then I do not see a retry mechanism. And one more thing, what happens if the data is not extract? So you have written here extract WIID and you have instructed the robot to get the top 100, right? Tomorrow if I tell that now you have to extract only 10 items, so what will you do?
I will. I have to mention these kind of things in a config file. Then I can directly change
Change
in.
the config, right? So do you understand the
Yeah.
problem here? This is
Yeah.
100, right? So that's why I have intentionally gave you 100, that number 100, right? Now second scenario, what happens if you extract the data and there is no data in the Acme website for this criteria, whatever you have mentioned, right? So I am
Yeah.
getting 0 rows in the data table. Do you still want to create this data table? Do you still want to write the
No.
in the right range? Will you still want to add the data into the queue?
No.
Right? So in that scenario, what ideally should happen? So if the data is 0, or if the, let's say you are getting no data, so
So
ideally you should inform someone, right?
yeah.
So will
So
it
we
be
can
a
use here
business or
if
system?
condition or
Yes,
something, and then we can
correct.
put if we don't have any data, then you can message email that
Right, right.
there is no data. Yeah.
And what kind of exception that would be? Will it be a system exception or will it be a business exception?
Bus-
Business exception, right?
business
Because,
exception. Yeah.
right,
Business. Yeah.
because we have not. But again, if you will see here, we have not thought of any of those scenarios, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
business exception, right?
Mm.
And the numbers to be configurable. When I say this number, this is the 100 and all, right? 100,
Mm.
220, whatever, right?
Mm.
And the numbers to be configurable, and again comma the sheet names to be configurable, right? So that way you have got a better control. Now
So
again,
I have one quick
yeah, go ahead.
question here.
Mhm,
So if we are extracting a data table,
mhm,
particular amount, the 100,
mhm.
how can we pass the variable? I mean, yeah, in here, extract data table.
So you have to just come here
We have to, yeah, okay.
in config, and whatever the attribute you have, so it's an integer, so you would have to first convert dot to int 32 or int 32, and then whatever you have mentioned in the config, that key will come here. That's it. Okay.
Okay.
Now
Yeah.
for the business exception, you would have to again use the try catch block. And then when you throw a business exception from here, then you will handle the business exception in this block.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay. So finally is blank because we are not using the orchestrator queue. And then if there is a business exception here, it will go to end process. If it is successful, it will go to end process. If it is success, it will again go to the end process, right?
End process.
So that
Yeah.
is all about the dispatcher. Now one thing here, how would I know if the dispatcher is successful or not?
Yeah. We have to maintain the log message for that also.
But every time I won't see the logs, right? So notification.
Okay.
I haven't mentioned this. I wanted you to think of it, but notification is something that you should send. That notification can be a success email, any
Okay.
notification to the business user that the dispatcher has been completed successfully. We have added 100 items to the queue. Anything, right? You can attach the Excel, you can attach the path, everything data you have, right? You can always think of more scenarios, but notification is something which you should take care of. Logging is something which you take care of, right? So this was all about the dispatcher, right? If you incorporate those things, your dispatcher looks good to me. Okay. Now let me just go to the other folder, which is the performer which you have created, right? Okay, my bad. I think performer WIID. So this is the next solution which you have created. Okay, so just let me check. So in the performer, whatever data we have added to the queue, we want to go to each and every item. Then we have to go to the SHA1 website. We have to enter the WIID, get the hash code, and update the hash code back to the Excel, which we have created in the dispatcher. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So let us just wait for the code to open. Okay, this one. Okay, so these things again, I think same mistake you would have done there also. So we will see. And in the performer, I think we have to get the hash code for also there, include a web automation also. Okay, so let us just wait for this guy to fire up. Okay, so now this is your performer. Okay, and this is the complete framework, correct? Okay, so again the same thing. This guy blank should be have values, right? In the here, this is the config part. No need to check. Here again, let us see what you have killed. You have killed the browser. So this you have done correctly, right? This is correct, right? So this should not come down. Now log message is correct. In the init all applications, we open the application, right? So we are opening the application. We are opening it from the target website, right? So as of now, you don't have anything to do here, right? So that's why it is blank. Always you can think of a mechanism. You can always write a log message here and say the browser has opened successfully. The same thing, right? Logging everything. Do you want to retry opening the SHA1? Same concept applies to here also, right? The retry mechanism, exception handling, everything. Okay, so let us close this. Now let me go to the get transaction data. So this is something I think you would have not changed it because this works pretty perfect, right? So orchestrator queue name, you have taken it from the orchestrator queue name only. So let me check your config again. So this is your performer config. See, here you have used it correctly. And you have removed the description. Don't remove the descriptions. Okay. So keep it them, or if you want to add more, but at least don't remove the default one. Okay. Now in the get transaction, you are getting the transactions one by one. And this is the default thing. The transaction ID is the date time string, right? This is by default, but just a suggestion, you can always use the transaction ID as WIID because this is something which is unique, right? ID is unique, right? So all you have to do is instead of here writing now.toString, you can just use the variable out transaction item dot WIID, right? A specific content, and WIID can now be your transaction ID. This also works good, but let's say when you are dealing with a automation where you have some ID like ticket ID or employee ID, something, that transaction ID always becomes that ID, right? It again depends on the automation, but that also can be used here.
How can we write this out transaction
Okay,
item and
so
dot?
how do you get the data from transaction item? So this is a transaction item, right? So in the performer,
Yeah.
see, you have to think how you are getting this data from here, from the queue item, how you are getting the
Queue.
WIID. So
I
you
mean
would have
from
written,
queue item one by one. Specific, yeah. In
right? Same
specific
concept,
content.
same thing,
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
right? So the you are getting nothing but the transaction item only, right? So here I would write
Yeah.
transaction item dot specific content within brackets WIID,
Yeah.
and then that will give you that one. Okay. Now the next one, again in the process transaction, why is this build data table? What is this doing here?
Because of that, I created here one report XAML Excel file for whether it is successful, that particular transaction or not, or what is
Okay,
what.
and you are adding data here, and then you would be okay. Let's see your logic.
Yeah.
Mention why you are building this data table.
Okay.
Audit maybe, right? And variable naming conventions. The data table starts with DT underscore. Okay, I forgot to check your variables, but variables is something which I'll check now, right? So always try to use the proper naming conventions. Okay. Now you are opening the browser here. I don't think, have you checked the selectors, or you are just working on the default one? So this is the default one. So type WIID. Are you using the default selector, or you have edited the selectors? These guys.
No, I didn't edit select.
Okay, so the same concept. And whenever you are typing something, you can have always use the log message activities here, right? So you are typing the WIID, getting the hash code, edit the selectors. Okay, this you are getting from the, okay, here you are attaching the browser. Okay, SHA1, and then you are using the write cell activity to write it in the sheet one, right? Again, this sheet one can be configured from the config file. Okay. And you are typing the hash code here, and the cell is coming from the transaction number B+2, that gives you B2. Now, what is the use of this data table? I didn't get where you are using this data table. Okay.
If the business exception occurs, so it will give me the status in each transaction.
Okay, got it. So you are maintaining an Excel to use the business exceptions. Okay, done. Okay, done. That's good. That is also a good approach, right? Now here again, the same thing. You can always use the exception handling. Think of the scenarios which might break, that the browser is not open, you are not able to done anything. How would I know that it is writing to the correct cell or not? So write cell. Okay, you are using the workbook activities, and it is not password protected, but this sheet name again can come from the config file. And I think this would be the same file which you have created, right, by the dispatcher. Okay, now one question. What would happen if I run the process 5 times a day?
So same data will override that.
So how can I mitigate that? Have you thought of that?
No, sir. I have to think about.
Right? Think of the rerun scenarios. I will leave this decision to you, that how would the rerun happen? That whenever you rerun the process, ideally in the dispatcher, it will every time go and override the data. Right? Now, how would you make sure that you are writing the status in the correct columns or correct thing? Right? Now, solution to that, one solution I can propose. Again, it entirely depends if you like my suggestion. If you don't like, you can always think of your own suggestion, all other solutions. So one thing what you can do is, when we are adding the data to the queue, right, along with the data queue, I just add the complete Excel path to the queue. Okay. So in this transaction item, along with the WIID, I will have something which is called the Excel path. the complete Excel path. Now, when I am writing the data, I would have the Excel path available here, right? And when you are creating the Excel, right, in the folder, so what you can do is you can always let me just copy this. So you are creating the files like this in the folder, right? So WID data.xlsx. What you can do is always put a date timestamp 26th August 21 10 31 26, right? Simple. Date 10:31 26 seconds. So this file name becomes unique now, right? So that is one approach. And other approach could be you can create separate folders, right? You create a folder for August, you create a folder for that date, and inside that date you create a folder with this time. That is also one approach. But the point which you have to think is that what happens in case of the rerun scenarios, right? This not only for this automation, but for any automation which you are doing, you have to think that what happens when I rerun the automation. Got it? And this one again, the same thing, description is missing. Okay, so don't delete it, or whenever you are adding the new keys, always make sure that you add one. Okay. And
so
this is
here,
good.
how can we put the entire Excel path in that?
Okay, so you go to the dispatcher. Okay, in the dispatcher, in the open workflow, when you are adding the data to the queue, right, you have this data table, extract data table. In this data table, you add one more column, and in that column you write the complete path, and that path will be get added to the queue.
Okay.
Got it? Right? You have this Excel, right? You are writing this data and you are adding this data to the queue, right? So before adding the data, add here one activity, which is add data column. Okay. And in the data table, your extract data table, you just add a new column which says file path maybe. And okay, so this is the column name, and this is that whatever, right? You just put the data table name here, extract data table, and you add a column, and for each and every column you will put the same file path in the data table, right? So ideally your structure will be like WID, and in front of it you will have the Excel name, right?
So
That
each
is
and every time,
here will have the same value.
Okay. Yeah,
Right.
Each and every time if we run the process, it will create the that name column or in every time.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So that is something
That's a
which you
good
can
idea.
So that is just my suggestion. Again, you can have your own approaches of handling, but the idea is whenever you do the automation, always think of the rerun scenarios, right?
Sure.
Okay, for the naming convention, see built DT, right? Here you have written built DT. Okay. And so this is this is extract data table provided by UiPath. You have initialized it. Here you have written built DT, and here you have written something else. If I just go to the process in your performer, here you would have written something else. See, here you have written built underscore DT underscore output, right? So naming conventions. Okay, you can read the standard naming conventions of UiPath. You can just Google it and you will get it. So ideally data table can be renamed, okay, DT underscore, let's say output data. Does it make sense, or which one is good?
Yeah, the DT output data,
right? Because anyone who is looking at the variables can see it, right? There are different ways, but the only thing is that whenever you create the variables, you use it, right? Now, important one I forgot. In the dispatcher, you have added the data to the queue. Do I still remember this? Do I still require this data table? So this data table has 100 items added to the queue. do I still require this data table or not?
I think according to me, it's yeah, because if we have to add again, if the transactions not
Okay,
uploaded
let's say
properly,
if it is uploaded successfully, then
then we don't need that.
all right, so we have to dispose it. So whichever items, big data type you are using, right, such as data table,
Yeah.
you have to always dispose the item. And how do you do that? You simply use an assign activity. Okay.
Mhm.
And okay, and here you write the data table name, and here you simply set to nothing. That's it, right? Once everything is done successfully. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
dispose the items whichever are not getting used and all, right? Variable naming convention is something which you have to take care of.
Mhm.
And yes, so that is all about this process. I don't see anything else. Performer you have done, you have created these things, so rest everything looks good to me. And yes, that's it. So I will just copy and paste this on the chat. So let me know
Yeah.
if you have received it.
Yes, sir. I have received
Okay,
it.
you can just
Mm.
copy and paste it in your location. And how was it, the code review? Was it helpful? How was
Yeah,
it?
it's very, very helpful, sir.
Okay. Okay, so that is all for this video. I would like to wrap this video here. If you found this video insightful, please like this video. Thank you for watching and happy automation.